Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, your weekly guide to what's happening on Earth as we make our revolutionary journey around the sun. For time immemorial, our human ancestors have created myths and meanings to help us adapt and thrive as seasons change. Join me each week to explore the intersections of these ancient cycles, from the indigenous medicine wheel to the pagan wheel of the year, the Babylonian and Greek zodiac to the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes. I'm your host, Alison Dale, and this is the Cycles of Time podcast. Hey everybody, how's everybody doing this week? Welcome to Cycles of Time. I'm hoping that you had a good week last week. We had a couple of sweet transits in the skies, and I'm hoping that last week's Venus-Jupiter conjunction and Mercury stationing direct might have given you a little bit of breathing room and sweetness in the midst of some really, truly intense cycles in the larger world. Last Monday was the day of Venus and Jupiter coming together in the sign of Cancer and Mercury stationing direct in Leo. And for me, a couple things showed up in my personal life. I felt like so many different friends and soul family came out of the woodwork. I had run-ins with people in town. A lot of just text messages and emails came flowing in, and I didn't really realize how much I needed that. Venus is the planet of relationship. Jupiter expands what it touches, and Cancer is the sign of the home, of nurturance, and of family. And so Mercury direct with Venus and Jupiter together there in Cancer made it really feel like there was kind of a thawing of relational energy and communication after many weeks or even months of it feeling really kind of tense and frozen with a certain overwhelm that I think a lot of us are feeling right now. But there was this, kind of blip, little glitch in the matrix with that Jupiter-Venus conjunction last week that, at least in my life, really did show up in a sweet way. But on the other side of things, there was another kind of side of the Venus-Jupiter day, which was last Monday, and that was after lots of hinting at it previously on that Mercury stationing direct in Venus-Jupiter day. It was also the day when our golden toilet president took control of Washington, D.C.'s police and brought in the National Guard, and federal troops were increasing street operations, including homeless encampment clearings and immigration checkpoints, and that's still happening. And it's kind of setting this precedent for this martial law expansion into other cities. So that happened on the Venus-Jupiter day, which was, a lot of astrologers were promising kind of the sweetest day of the year where Venus and Jupiter come together. But, it's a good reminder that astrological transits and energies are not necessarily good or bad, but they exist kind of on a continuum. And I think that astrologers who promise the luckiest, sparkliest day of the year, or on the other side, the worst week of 2025, kind of drive me crazy because it's a bit clickbaity and kind of sets expectations to a universalized experience. So, with what happened in the political sphere on the day of Venus-Jupiter in Cancer, it kind of also aligned with the astrology in the sense that, Jupiter suggests an expansion, Venus is relationships, and Cancer is the homeland. And so the Venus-Jupiter and Cancer conjunction kind of suggests an expansion of relationships that support and nurture the homeland, which is exactly what our president says that he's doing. Whether that is true or not, I mean, it's not true, but it's the words, the themes, the archetypes are similar, where I was feeling a thawing of relational energy, kind of a lot of protective kind of connection of home and family. And then that was also happening on the national stage here in the US in a very different way. But yeah, that just kind of goes to say that all of the archetypes that we work with in astrology, human design, and beyond are dynamic and non-binary and can show up in a variety of ways. So there's not like good or bad really when it comes to these. It kind of depends on what is your definition of home and protecting the homeland. For example, it can be very different from person to person. So for me, I believe that astrological transits and human design gates and all of the things that we talk about each week here on the podcast are super helpful for contemplation of like a quality of being rather than an exact prediction of how something will manifest in a sparkly good or, fearfully bad way. So just wanted to put a little reflection out there as far as last week. If you didn't have a great sparkly week, don't feel bad about it. Jupiter is also a planet of, expansion that can lead to overwhelm. And so that overwhelm could have continued. But anyway, if you did have a moment of light in the midst of a lot of shadowy times, I hope that you did. Right now, I'm in a couple of groups, online kind of study groups that highlight this spectrum of existence, this fact that dark and light are two sides of the same sphere, and you can't have one without the other. One course is on magical activism and trickster citizenship with one of my favorite astrologers, Caroline Casey, who's the author of Visionary Activist Astrology, which was one of the books that got me really deep into kind of outer planet wisdom and kind of big cycles. And so she's awesome, and it's been a really cool class. She's very like boomer era, just like hippie era kind of wild type of languaging. And it's been a really fun group to be a part of. And then the other group is about the second act of midlife, as I'm currently experiencing a lot of midlife transits and thinking about that a lot, these outer planetary angles. That's with Sarah Durham Wilson, and her group centers on the shift in midlife from maiden to mother, or the maiden mother era to the enchantress and crone era, and says that there aren't really just three stages of life for a woman, which would be maiden, mother, and crone, but there's 4 seasons, and so there's 4 seasons of life as well. So she sees it as maiden to mother to enchantress to crone. So after the motherhood era, and after the maiden era, and before you're a crone, there's this time in which, kind of a perimenopausal, menopausal time perhaps, where you don't have the roles of maiden and mother necessarily defining you, and you can come back to yourself and define yourself before you reach that wisdom of old age. So they both of these containers are really beautiful right now, kind of being in community with people who are feeling the call to both hold and release the grief and rage and despair, and also liberation potential and deep opportunity of these times that we're living through. I like that both of these spaces hold complexity and darkness, and they're not just love and lighting our way through. And that's kind of the whole point of these. And yeah, I'm just feeling really grateful for having some spaces to get deep and talk about some real things that are up. And I'm excited to create a space, some more courses and containers and community spaces here within the next year. I have my solar return coming up in September, and my birthday, and it's on the lunar eclipse, or the lunar eclipse is opposite my sun on that day. And so I'll have a lunar eclipse solar chart. I'll be sending out some horoscopes for the eclipse season in September for everybody on Substack. So if you don't subscribe there on Substack, join up and you'll get these bonus articles. I'm also going to start doing a series of bonus articles about the larger cycles that are taking place. I'm going through the Wheel of the Year in Cycles of Time podcast, and I'm almost halfway through my second year here, considering how transitional these times that we're currently in are, with the massive shifts in outer planetary alignments, the shift in the precession of the equinoxes that's coming up soon to a whole new chapter. There's a lot of interesting things happening in like the big cycles. Pluto's going out of bounds for like the next 20, 30 years, which is something I wanted to talk about. So I've decided to put together a little series on Substack, and I may or may not record it for the podcast, depending on my timing. But I'm definitely looking forward to adding on. I want to continue this weekly Monday forecast for the week ahead, and the transits and human design gates and Wheel of the Year components for the day to day, because I do find them to be incredibly helpful. But at this very pivotal time, I do feel like we're in this threshold space, kind of this great turning, as the wonderful late Joanna Macy put it. We're in the midst of this transitionary moment between that curvature of the earth where light becomes shadow and shadow becomes light. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to putting together a few more bonus articles I've been writing at the storm. So join on Substack at cyclesoftimesubstack.com to get those in your inbox, just in case I don't record them if you're listening here on another platform. But yeah, I just, being in community and local community, in-person community right now is certainly the best, being able to like touch grass and like hold a hand. But these virtual digital communities and groups where people are coming together with a very pointed and distinct reason to be there, and then allowing that to morph and change and learn from people in ways that you might not otherwise learn. It's been very inspiring. And a couple of things that came through these channels that I wrote down to share, as they reminded me of the shift from Leo season to Virgo season, which is happening this week. We're evolving from, in the Wheel of the Year, from kind of a heart-centered, self-expressive place of Leo to a more gut-centered, intuitive sovereignty and service period with Virgo. And so a couple of, short quips from these courses. Caroline Casey says, hope is not a feeling, hope is an action. And she also says, embrace the dire beauty of our time as an inroads to personal evolution, a powerful sense of purpose, and greater dedication and service to what you love. So embracing the dire beauty of our time as an inroads to personal evolution. I really liked that. I really love her way with words. She dives deep into the etymology behind so many words, and it's just, hearing her speak is fascinating. So if you haven't read Visionary Activist Astrology, it's a great book. I highly recommend jumping into that one. It would be a good book club situation for sure. Sarah Durham Wilson says the opposite of love is apathy. And so these are just active. There's a lot of activism quotes going on in here right now. And this week we have Mars sextiling Mercury. And so I think that like the Martian type of active languaging in communication is really landing this week, is what I've noticed. So moving on, a little announcement. The Virgo Season Guidebook, which is a 46-page ebook this month with journaling prompts and somatic exercises for each week of Virgo season, will be sent out to inboxes of paid subscribers on Substack, the Embody the Revolution members, this week. I'll probably send them out tomorrow, Tuesday. But yeah, you'll be getting those in your inbox. If you'd like to get one of these books every month, they're jam-packed with information. And if you'd also like to be invited to get free tickets to my monthly zodiac workshops and breathwork journeys, I do one every month for the zodiac sign that we're in. You can join as a paid subscriber on Substack. It's easy to do so. I'll put a link in the show notes if you're not listening on Substack, or just upgrade your subscription. And I've also decided to make the guidebooks that I'm putting out each month available for purchase. So if you'd like to get one for yourself or a friend as a one-off, you can do so on my recently updated Etsy shop. And in the spirit of Leo season, I also just listed some of my art, some clothing that I've made, hand-painted denim jackets, as well as some yoga pants, and with my kind of rainbow serpent designs and various cosmic related art. So you can check that out on Etsy. You can follow the link of cosmicodysseyart.com and see some of the visual stuff that I put together if you're interested, as well as some more and more digital downloads related to Cycles of Time and related to this podcast, including these booklets of each zodiac season. So if you're a Virgo, if you identify with Virgo, this book kind of might dive into it in a different way than you've seen before, and has a lot of journaling prompts and somatic exercises and rituals and all the good stuff. So check that out, cosmicodysseyart.com, and you can find the link on Substack as well at Cycles of Time Substack. So jumping into the Wheel of the Year, I have my little diagram on Substack and on Instagram pinned to the top, which I kind of forget to mention sometimes. But if you are listening, it's a great reference to look at kind of how all these wheels of the year from different cultures come together and how the sun transits through each one. And right now, it's just looking at it, I'm struck by the fact that we are creeping up on the fall equinox, and started back in Gate 25 Ostara in the east direction. The element of wood between Pisces and Aries season was when this season of cycles of time began. And our little sun, I've watched it creep across the southern part of that wheel and past the summer solstice. And here we are creeping up on autumn with Virgo season approaching. We are in the medicine wheel direction west now, which is evocative of the stage of life of adulthood. After east is childhood and south is youth, and then we reach the west and it's adulthood and a certain maturity, certain emotionality, a depth of emotion that happens in adulthood. Represents fall, of course, and the element water associated with that emotionality. And this is the Ojibwe medicine wheel that I follow. In the whooshing 5-element Taoist cycle, we're in the transitional element between fire and metal and the wheel that represents late summer and early fall, and that's the element of earth. And that makes sense because we're heading into Virgo's or very earthy Virgo season as well. We are in the pagan season, the pagan wheel of the year of Lammas or Lunasa, which happened last week. That was the first of the harvest festivals, kind of initiating harvest season. And zodiac season this week transitions between Leo and Virgo on August 22nd. And then this week, the I Ching and Human Design and Gene Keys Wheel of the Year. Those are all similar. It's the same kind of 64 gates on the outer wheel of the year. And from Sunday, August 17th to Friday, August 22nd, the sun is in gate 29, which is known as the gate of commitment or the gate of perseverance or the gate of saying yes. It is water over water in the I Ching, a double trigram known as the abysmal. And that's gate 29 for the majority of this week. So we'll talk about that. And then as the sun moves into Virgo, it's also moving into gate 59, the first gate of Virgo season, which is wind over water, known as dispersion. It's also known as the gate of sexuality or intimacy. And that's from Saturday, August 23rd to next Thursday, August 28th. And then we have the moon phase this week, a new moon in Virgo. And that's in the gate of sexuality or intimacy. And I'm not going to talk about too many other transits. I mentioned that Mars-Mercury sextile that's happening kind of for a long period of time through the week. So that's just kind of flowing energy between action and communication. And so I kind of highlighted that a little bit before, but we'll focus on the new moon and Virgo season in this one, and thus starting out with the wrapping up Leo season with the final gate of the lion, which is the gate of saying yes, gate 29. So we have now finished our journey just about through the human design gates of Leo. And at the beginning of every season, if you've been here for a while, if you haven't, if you're new, welcome. But if you've been here for a while, you know that I put out another bonus article and podcast that details kind of the story of the evolution of the lion or the virgin or the seasonal archetype through the gates of human design and the I Ching and the Gene Keys. And so thus far in Leo season, since we entered in July 22nd, the lion has journeyed through the energies of the stimulating storyteller, the radiant influencer. Then lion retreated back into the den with the gate of retreat or privacy. Then came back out of the den with a little bit more wizened democratic leadership. Then moved on to kind of formalization of how to lead and forgiveness for other people for not always being exactly aligned. And that was last week. And then the final gate is commitment and committing to what it is that we want to persevere through, saying yes to the things that are right for us after this journey of just the lion Leo is figuring out how he is perceived in the world, how he affects people, how he influences people, and how you need a bit of retreat to kind of learn how to do that in a good way, right? And so we reach the gate of commitment here at the end of Leo season, and it feels like the perfect gate to lead us into Virgo season because we're committing to our hearts. We're committing to what the burning embers in our hearts are keeping alive and saying yes to. We're not as obsessed with the outer world's opinions of us. Leo can have that kind of shadow where it's always looking for external validation, for example. But committing here is after looking outward. We're now looking inward to our hearts and saying, what am I saying yes to? So Leo is associated with the heart in medical astrology and with our 20s in the human life cycle, the era of, our 19 to 28 or something like that. And to me, the story of Leo season really embodies an evolution into that heart-centered expression and leadership. And yeah, it begins with us sharing what's on our hearts openly. After the inwardly reflective season of Cancer the Crab, we come out and we tell stories, and in the beginning of Leo season in that heat of summer. And in doing so, we realize that our vulnerable truths and stories do make an impact on others and influence others. So we reach the gate of influence. And with this awareness, we retreat back into our caves, kind of needing to process what this influence on the larger world means for us personally. Then we re-enter the world with more deliberate leadership, knowing that we have to lead from within and listen to our hearts as well as the hearts of others. And this then leads to the next gate, which is the gate of formalization. And this is the lion formalizing questions and asking, what if my heart's not aligned with the other hearts in the pride? And these questions can begin with a feeling of intolerance, but evolve to a deeper understanding about what true leadership and true belonging is through the path of forgiveness. So that was last week's gate. And then finally, this week, after journeying inward and outward, Leo the Lion arrives at the conclusion of commitment, perseverance, and saying yes to what is asked of him and what he truly is lit up by. So commitment, perseverance, saying yes. That is a big theme of this week before we enter Leo season, or Virgo season. And in the Gene Keys, this gate has the shadow of half-heartedness, the gift of commitment, and the city of devotion. So by this point in the lion's journey, he knows that he can't wait to find perfect alignment between his heart and all the other hearts, or waste time judging himself or others. He can't lead with a half-hearted attitude or a desire for perfection. He just simply has to commit to the path ahead, knowing that he can rise to the occasion as is required. Richard Rudd, creator of the Gene Keys, says of this gate, Gate 29, true commitment involves a deep trust in where we are right now, with an ever-deepening commitment to the present moment. At this stage, we begin to understand that to commit is also to surrender. Our frequency rises whenever we pour our heart unconditionally to another in service of the highest. The more we love in this way, the more pressure we create within the heart of creation. Eventually, all of our love ruptures the time-space continuum, and the inexplicable occurs. Subject merges with object, and oneness is all that's left. Good old Richard Rudd, so poetic, so spirit-oriented. But I thought it was beautiful. To commit is also to surrender, and pouring our heart unconditionally to another and in service of the highest is really what this gate is about at its essence. So the gate of saying yes is not about saying yes to everything that comes your way, but it's really about aligning with your own heart and committing to what is true for you, radiating a devotion to your own path out of your heart space. By persevering in this way, you can attract and meet others who are naturally aligned with you, and that heart energy, that magnetic radiance, kind of magnetic resonance from our hearts, definitely attracts each other when we are spilling what we're saying yes to out into the world. And we enter Virgo season right after this gate. And the first gate of Virgo season is the gate of intimacy or sexuality. So this is that gate in Virgo season is kind of the first taste we have of the other in the human design mandala or wheel of the year. I mean, in Gemini season, it's kind of like there's some chatty stuff going on. There's some definite communication happening. But I think this is the first gate where we reach a certain intimacy of I know myself now, having come through the summer, having come through the spring and summer and entering fall. It's this awareness of, okay, I've lived through my 20s. I'm entering my 30s. I have an understanding of self, and I'm ready to intimately relate to someone else's true sense of self. And so this lion leonine evolution to our pure commitment, like to our own hearts, really prepares us for real intimacy with another. And so this week it's all about saying yes to yourself so that you may honestly and truly say yes to another. As I speak this out, I'm reminded of a book that I've been reading my daughter. It's called The Heart Heads, and it's about these heart-headed people who don't have eyes or ears, and they just have hearts for heads. And they're these beautifully funny, like, oil paintings that someone's done and put a children's book to them, and they are these heart creatures who all come to earth to kind of help all the devastations happening on earth, and they just sprinkle hearts all around, and they convert mean pets and ogres to loving wonderful, like, community oriented people and creatures. And it's her favorite book, and it's very sweet. It's written in this poetic way, but I think of hearts this season, like lots of hearts coming together at the end of Leo season that are radiating outward with their truth, with everything that you've cultivated over the course of this past month as you've put yourself perhaps out into the outer world and put your vulnerability into the outer world, connected with people, what has come back to reinforce your heart's truth. And so, yeah, saying yes to what is true in your heart is what it's all about. The I Ching in this particular gate, I Ching has a quite a different vibe, I would say, but it's similar. It's just I'm gonna read about it. It's water over water, gate 29, known as the abysmal, and water is the abyss, right? It's going deep down into the depths. Water sinks and fire rises. Water goes down, 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 down. So water over water is deep. It's a deep gate. And so commitment and perseverance kind of matches that, just in the sense of like the true depth to which you have to go in order to know that you're going to commit. It's also widely known as danger, and that's pulled from the I Ching phrase that says, repeating the pit, danger. There's a connection to spirits that will carry you through. Hold your heart fast, success. Making a move brings honor. So I like that hold your heart fast was in there. We have this heart-centered energy even in the ancient I Ching writings, but danger is kind of what was pulled from that. And the symbolism of this hexagram is kind of like the proverbial dark night of the soul a little bit, from what I've gleaned. It signifies danger, but also this deeply transformative power of the unknown and the underworld, the abyss, the underworld, right? It's like getting to the depths of what is real and what is true for you. The images of endless flowing water going down and repeated danger that symbolizes both hardship and peril, and the wisdom that we need to navigate it, which is that heartfelt commitment, that holding your heart fast, leading to success. So that's kind of where we come to this energy of commitment. It's not just commitment isn't light, right? Perseverance through something hard is not a light task. And so that is something that we are tasked with this week as the sun transits this gate Monday through Thursday. So, yeah, as we begin this week, tap into the wisdom of flowing water and the power of perseverance as you approach any challenges. Stay steady in your heart, follow your truth, and do your best to find a balance point between caution and action. Then on Friday, the month of Virgo, the harvest maiden goddess begins, and it is immediately followed by her new moon. The sun and moon basically ingress from Leo into Virgo at the same time. So the new moon is going to happen at 0 degrees Virgo. So it's kind of just bam, bam. That doesn't happen very often. So just getting in a little bit to Virgo season, I just recorded a podcast with the wonderful Jonathan Coe on his Healing the Spirit podcast. And it was all about Virgo because I am a Virgo sun. And so he reached out to me to talk about this archetype, and we had a lot of fun chatting about it. So that'll be coming out soon, and I'll ping you and let you know when that episode is going to come out. But as I thought about Virgo, a lot comes up. It's a deep, the abyss leads us to the depth of what Virgo is all about. And I think Virgo can be very misunderstood, and yeah, that's just how I felt throughout my life, but I'll dig into it a little bit here. Yeah, Friday is when the season of the harvest goddess earth and emotional maturity all come together. And so it feels like the seasons are changing. I don't know how you feel, but around this time, when we move from the fixed fire sign of Leo to the mutable earth sign of Virgo, there's a certain change in the air for sure. It's the way the light hits. It's sinking lower into the horizon. And there is that beautiful harvest golden color that shows up. The sunflowers are popping, all wild sunflowers all around the roads around my house right now, and it's a really beautiful time of year. But also, you can feel that little bit of a chill in the morning and the evenings, and then it's super hot midday. But it is back to school, back to work, get your shit together time of year. That is what Virgo's all about, right? And the Virgin has that glistening crown of wheat, that golden aura, and welcomes us with open arms. It's the season of being in service and turning our expression into purpose. So we move from the expressive hearts of Leo season to connecting that purity and commitment of self-expression and self-truth with other people and how we can serve the greater collective. So as we arrive in the season of late summer and early fall, and in the medicine wheel, we've left the season of flaming hot fire behind, and we've entered the emotionally mature season of adulthood, represented by water and the direction west. And then after fire in the whooshing Taoist 5-element cycle, we are entering the season of earth. So, that corresponds with Virgo season, which is mutable earth sign, like I said. Moving into yin kind of elements versus the yang of summer, which was just fire, 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 right? And in the whooshing cycle, earth not only represents the season of late summer and early fall, but it also represents the transition time between all the seasons. So there's an earth element that shows up between winter and spring, between spring and summer, summer and fall and winter. So in this ancient 5-element system, earth is considered the central element, which has a balance of yin and yang. And its energy is stabilizing and conserving, and it's able to act as a pivot point for the transitions between each of the other 4 elements, which are wood, fire, metal, and water. And earth, this central element, is associated with qualities of nurturing, stability, growth, foundation. That's kind of a foundation where life thrives and transitions. And so I don't know about you, but I'm definitely ready for some stabilizing and nurturing earth energy after all the fire and air of the past several months. We have all the outer planets moved into fire and air signs, and so that's felt extra hot over the summer. And they're now all retrograding back into water and earth signs for a short while. So we are having this kind of return to earth, return to yin, return to stabilizing, return to emotionality kind of quality over this fall before we spring ahead into another fiery spring. But anyway, in the zodiac, Virgo has mutable earth energy, and this is associated most explicitly with the harvest. It's a time of year when the earth itself changes dramatically, like the physicality of the earth changes because we're reaping the living plants, and plants are dying, and fruits are falling off, and we're picking things and tilling the fields and leaving them ready for the season of death and winter and the underworld. So there's a massive change in the earth. So mutable earth makes a lot of sense for this sign. And mythologically, Virgo is associated with many different goddesses of the harvest and fertility and service, and also cycles of descent and ascent to and from the underworld. In ancient Babylon, the ancient star maps, they called the Virgo constellation Absin, which means the furrow. And, I just think of a field that's been tilled that has furrows, and kind of evokes virgin land that is ready to be planted, ready to have seeds drop into it over the fall season. And so I really like that. And the brightest star in the Virgo constellation, which is a huge constellation in the sky, the brightest one is known as Spica, and that means ear of grain. So it goes way back, and that goes way back to the Babylonian constellations as well. The constellation and star were associated with the Sumerian goddess named Shala, who is the deity of grain and compassion. And she was wife of the storm god Adad and was believed to bring bounteous harvests for the people of Mesopotamia. Over time, Shala was eventually merged with other deities and influenced later figures like Demeter in Greek mythology and Ceres in Roman mythology. This goddess of the harvest kind of tracks back to Shala, who was holding that ear of grain, which was probably barley rather than wheat in Mesopotamian times, but that's where that wheat harvest is associated with. And then we have, Demeter and Ceres, the Greek and Roman goddesses of grain and harvest, as obvious representations of Virgo. But Virgo has also been associated with Demeter's daughter Persephone, who most of us know this tale. But basically, Persephone was abducted by Hades, the lord of the underworld, Pluto, and she was abducted while she was picking a narcissus flower. And I was reading somewhere that this could be seen as, the narcissus flower representing Leo's pride. Leo's associated with a certain narcissism in some ways. And so as she was picking that and thinking about, it's eternal spring here on earth, there's no winter, I'm just picking these flowers, like living in kind of bounty all the time. Persephone was abducted, and then her time in the underworld created the winter. And there was this beautiful dynamic where she decided to become Hades' wife, and she accepted that as her fate, to be there half the year and then to return to her mother Demeter above ground for the other half of the year. And this created the seasonal cycles, which really aligns with the goddess of the mutable earth, of the changing seasons. And so I love thinking about maybe just that whole story representing Virgo, Demeter and Persephone, because I think that Virgo season is also about reconciling our conscious with our subconscious and our self-orientedness with our orientation to the other, with the above ground and the below ground. There's a lot of integration that happens as we till these fields post-harvest and, harvest everything from the season of life and enter the season of death. We are on this cusp and this threshold. And so I've just really been deepening into Virgo. Virgo is also associated with the Greek goddess Astraea, who is the Virgin of Justice, and the goddess of justice, and not the Virgin of Justice. But she was the last deity of one of these like primordial deities, like the big gods in Greek mythology. She was the last to live on Earth during the Golden Age on Earth, before she withdrew to the heavens when humanity became too corrupt for her to live on Earth anymore. And that's when she became the constellation Virgo. So there's that justice and purity aspect to the Virgo archetype with that story. And I really like the Demeter Persephone story a little bit better for the story of Virgo, because it is associated with change and the changing seasons and the mutability of this earth. But there is also that purity and that kind of like discernment and saying like, I'm going to stay here as long as I can, but when it gets too bad, like, you guys got to fix it yourself. Like, this isn't my party. Isis is also associated with Virgo in the in the Egyptian tome. She's the great Egyptian mother and magician, and she embodies Virgo's really healing skills and meticulous care. And Isis also reassembles what has been broken and restores life through ritual precision, and also protects the vulnerable with fierce dedication. I'm just going off on the history of Virgo because I feel like it's just not that well known. And so there's a lot. There's in Roman tradition, Ceres is the nurturer of the land, harvest goddess as well, who definitely is aligned with the Virgo. And then also in Roman times, Vesta was the Roman goddess of the hearth, and she was the goddess who vowed virginity, or not necessarily virginity, but didn't get married because she was so dedicated to keeping the central hearth of Rome lit. And so Vesta mirrors Virgo's quiet consistency and commitment to service, where she tends this eternal flame that keeps the community's spiritual center alive, and instead of having her own marriage and children and her own life in that way. So both Ceres and Vesta reflect Virgo's archetypes as the keeper of the sacred, and so that sacredness could be a temple or a home or the inner altar of the heart. And it's all about this kind of cross section between service and devotion and discipline and discernment and love being acts of power. As the goddess of the zodiac, I'm really attuning to her during this season. We need a lot of these types of energies. So across cultures, these figures are definitely not passive maidens. You hear the word maiden or virgin a lot with Virgo, but these are the goddesses who have been associated with the Virgo constellation. And they're all fierce and consistent keepers of order and the sacred contract between Earth and humanity as well. So Virgo really reminds us that sustenance and wisdom come from service and discernment, and that's what we're focusing on this season. So decide what you're committing to, and then you can take it forward into the larger picture. It's really a big theme of this week. And then Saturday, we have the new moon in Virgo in the gate 59 in the human design wheel, known as the gate of intimacy or sexuality. And this is right after the sun enters Virgo. The moon joins and initiates us into the Harvest Maiden's realm with the final normal new moon before September's eclipse season. So this is the last new moon before we have a lunar eclipse in Pisces and then a solar eclipse in Virgo. So if you do manifesting on new moons and setting intentions and planting seeds, I would say this would be the last one to do it until we reach October, because I don't recommend manifesting on eclipses. Eclipses are all about a kind of just putting your hands up and recognizing, submitting, surrendering to the power of the universe. They're like these reset moments where there's less. We can't exactly see the reflection of what's going on. There's some hidden surprises and universal messages happening. So I'd say this full moon in Virgo, great time to manifest, because Virgo is all about setting intentions and all of those kind of energies of getting everything together, gathering things in. So we are, kind of initiated with this new moon into Virgo season. And it's in gate 59. The sun and moon meet in gate 59, the gate of sexuality or intimacy. And this in the I Ching is called dispersion. And the trigrams are wind moving over water. And it kind of evokes the visual of breaking apart what is stagnant. A still water, wind blows over it and kind of stirs it up. And it's, breaking apart what has become calcified so that life can circulate again. We've been in the depths of the abyss with that commitment to ourself, to what is mine, what am I persevering through? And then the wind comes and kind of stirs it up and says, all right, we're moving this. We're moving through. And so this new moon energy really speaks to dissolving divisions and clearing up misunderstandings, restoring natural flow between people and between our own selves and the larger world and our bodies and our spirits. We're stirring things up a bit with this new moon. It's really not like a recklessness. We're not charging through, but we're deliberately clearing, like those irrigation channels of the furrow that are open to let water nourish the fields. We're tilling the fields a little bit with this dispersing energy. In the Gene Keys, Richard Red describes this as it has the shadow of dishonesty, the gift of intimacy, and the city of transparency. So for the new moon reflections here, a shadow frequency might be when our fears of rejection or betrayal or exposure cause us to hide our truth. We can become guarded and kind of evasive and dishonest. And the gift level of this gate of intimacy transforms this by revealing that true intimacy is an energetic openness more than a physical intimacy. It's this energetic of willingness to be seen and to see others without guardedness, without pretense, and to welcome another's beautifully committed heart into your own. So it's this merging of hearts. That's the heart heads I was talking about. And the city of transparency is this beautiful transcendent state where nothing is hidden and nothing needs to be defended, and where union is a natural condition. All of the cities in the gene keys are this reaching this kind of enlightened state of union and oneness, it seems like, and there's just a lot of different ways to reach that state. But transparency feels like a really good North Star for this new moon in Virgo, being as transparent as possible and recognizing that intimacy is just being energetically open as much as possible. So this lunation's in Virgo, so there will be an impulse to refine and purify. But there's also this kind of an energetic openness of gate 59 in that first part of Virgo. So it's just fresh Virgo. It's coming out of Leo. We're still in that kind of like heartfelt energy that wants to connect very deeply. And so we're not deep into the refinement of what Virgo learns in her journey. And I'll be putting out my 6 human design gates of Virgo season soon, along with this podcast. It'll come out in the next couple of days so that you'll be prepared for what the story arc of Virgo season is through the gates of human design. But yeah, stay tuned for that. In this early stage, though, it is this dissolving kind of energy. And it is asking us to become more precise about what real connection means and let go of entanglements that drain our committed, perseverant, what we've said yes to vitality. Really harping on this transition between 29 commitment and 59 intimacy. There's like it's a powerful time of year where the hearts, your own radiant self-expressed heart, is meeting others and deciding how to be of service. And so, yeah, let this new moon set the stage for letting go of entanglements that you have that are draining your life force and not letting your heart shine. And invest your life force into the relationships and creative projects and inner work that thrive in your own truth. It's a time to really tend these sacred channels, this furrow between yourself and the world, this place between light and darkness, and ensure that they are clear enough for love and truth and desire to really flow through. Wind over water, let that energy circulate. So this week could show up for you in several ways. You might notice where you've overextended yourself and need to pull back. Or you could feel the call to recommit to something in a kind of grounded and day-to-day practice. That's what Virgo is all about as well, is the day-to-day, the kind of minutia. Some of your yeses will deepen and others will just dissolve and flow through because they were never rooted in your real heart energy to begin with. There might be a push-pull between wanting to protect your energy and wanting to merge with the right people or projects this week. So yeah, it's like sovereignty, self-obsession, self-expression with meeting that other, the threshold space. There's might be a realization that the yes is what you're saying yes to during the majority of this week, and the gate of saying yes feels just like a soft opening and a release, like your shoulders drop, rather than saying yes and pushing through. There's like a somatic experience in your body of relaxation when the right yes comes through. And so, yeah, not saying yes to everything, but just taking the time to feel what a good yes feels like in your body. And you can maybe be more aware this week of where your commitments are draining you versus where they're feeding you. As we move into the new moon, specifically, this new moon is inviting a dissolving of isolation, breaking through the walls that you've built out of habit, protection, or busyness. Kind of harping back to what I said in the beginning about that thawing kind of energy that I felt with the Venus-Jupiter conjunction. Perhaps this gate of intimacy with the new moon will bring a little bit of that thawing energy as well, leading to more intimacy and transparency. But then at the same time, being selective about it and recognizing that not all intimacy is for everyone and you don't need to overshare who you are, your radiant heart with everyone. It's a tender time, I'll say. And then planting the seeds is what this moon is about, planting the seeds for the rest of the year, perhaps, about like growing something that's real and tangible And having the new moon happen in gate 59, it's kind of asking, who do you trust enough to plant that seed with? Looking at relationships this week, intimacy. I didn't really mention the sexuality part of it, but I think that I'm focusing more here on the, transcendent of physical intimacy, that openness. But that very much extends into sexuality as well. Deepness, richness, openness, not performativeness. It's really shifting away from a performance of expression to a deep merging with another. So that is where we're at this week. You can probably find out through many other astrologers what the aspects are to this new moon. There's going to be plenty written about it. And then we jump into eclipse season, and there'll be so much about that. But I will be putting some stuff out about that as well, because it's super personal to me this year. Eclipses hitting my sun and then hitting my moon and Mercury. It's like all my inner planets and personal luminaries. So woo, gotta hold on here. But I'll try to keep showing up, and I'll let you know if I can't. But it's lovely to be here with you all. Thank you to you new subscribers who've shown up and signed up. I welcome any feedback, comments, questions. You can stay in touch with me. I have a website. You can find it astrosomatics.com, where you can book human design and astrology readings with me, as well as breathwork sessions, and sign up for the group breathwork journeys that I hold every month. And on Instagram, you can find me at Cycles of Time Podcast and Astrosomatics, and subscribe at cyclesoftime.substack.com to get this podcast, as well as a lot of other bonus articles and goodies in your inbox every week. So yeah, I look forward to walking through Virgo season with you, moving from this hot, fiery season into an earthy and watery season of a little bit more maturity, and everything that comes through that comes along with that. And I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful week ahead. Let me know in the comments how these energies are showing up for you, and I'll see you next week. Bye.